Desperation in Gaza as Israel blocks Aiddespite ceasefire deal. Trump claims California election was rigged. Fact-checkers disagree. UK police braced for protest clashes as Aston Villa host Maccabi Tel Aviv. Tigray fighters enter Ethiopia's far region, stoking fears of new conflict. Good afternoon. Welcome to the World in 30 Minutes on Politics and Business Television. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oibo. Many thanks for joining us. Desperation is growing in Gaza as Israel continues to block the entry of humanitarian aid, despite a ceasefire agreement brokered to ease weeks of intense fighting. Thousands of displaced families are struggling without food, clean water, and medical supplies, with aid convoys reportedly halted at key border crossings. International organizations have warned of a worsening humanitarian catastrophe if relief efforts are not urgently allowed to resume. The United Nations and several world leaders have called on Israel to honor the terms of the ceasefire and ensure the safe delivery of life-saving assistance. Meanwhile, hospitals in Gaza remain overwhelmed, treating victims of airstrikes and malnutrition amid critical shortages of fuel and medicine. As diplomatic efforts intensify, the people of Gaza continue to endure severe hardship, caught in the crossfire of a deepening crisis. In another development, tensions have escalated sharply along the Israel-Lebanon border as Israeli forces intensify air and artillery strikes on Hezbollah positions. The strikes, which follow days of cross-border exchange, have left several areas in southern Lebanon in ruins and forced hundreds of families to flee their homes. Israel says the attacks are in response to ongoing rocket fire from Hezbollah militants, warning that it will continue its operations until the group ceases its aggression. In response, Hezbollah has vowed to defend Lebanese territory, accusing Israel of violating sovereignty and endangering civilian lives. The group leaders say they are prepared for a prolonged confrontation if Israeli attacks persist. Regional observers fear that the escalating hostilities could spiral into a wider conflict, threatening fragile stability in the Middle East and undermining ongoing diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions. Meanwhile, former U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that California's recent election was rigged, alleging widespread fraud linked to mail-in ballots and redirecting practices. In a post on his social media platform Truth Social, Trump described the process as a giant scam, accusing state officials of manipulating voting system to favor Democrats. His remarks have reignited debate over election integrity as the political climate heats up ahead of future races. However, independent fact-checkers and election experts have dismissed Trump's allegation as baseless. Organizations such as PolitiFact report there is no credible evidence of large-scale voter fraud or manipulation in California's electoral process. Officials point out that the state's mail-in voting system includes strict verification and auditing measures to ensure transparency. Analysts say Trump's claim echo previous unfounded accusations that have repeatedly been proven false in court and through independent investigation. British police are on a high alert ahead of Thursday night's Europa Conference League match between Aston Villa and Israel's Maccabi Tel Aviv, amid fears of large-scale protests and potential clashes. Security has been significantly increased around Villa Park in Birmingham, with authorities coordinating closely with both clubs to ensure the safety of players, fans, and the wider public. The heightened tensions follows growing demonstrations across Europe over the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Officials have urged fans to remain peaceful and avoid confrontations, warning that any disorder will be met with firm action. While football authorities hope the game proceeds without incident, concerns remain that political tensions could spill into the stands. The match is seen as a major test of crowd control and public safety as the UK continues to navigate heightened sensitivities surrounding Middle East-related protests. Reliance on drone surveillance. Military sources say Moscow troops are using smaller dispersed units and electronic warfare systems to evade detection, making it harder for Ukrainian forces to track and target them. The development marks a significant shift in Russia's battlefield strategy as fighting intensifies along the Donetsk front. Ukrainian commanders acknowledge that Russia's evolving tactics pose new threats to their defensive operations, though they insist the situation remains under control. Analysts warn that the battle for Pokrovsk could become a critical test of Ukraine's ability to adapt its drone and intelligence operations amid changing warfare dynamics. Meanwhile, civilians in the region continue to bear the brunt of the clashes, with renewed shelling forcing more families to flee their homes. You're watching the world in 30 minutes live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, Afghan earthquake survivors face winter cold after deadly quakes. Stay with us. Welcome back. Survivors of recent deadly earthquakes in Afghanistan are struggling to cope with freezing winter conditions as thousands remain displaced with limited access to shelter, food, and medical care. Aid agencies warn that the combination of harsh weather and inadequate resources is worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis, with many families forced to live in makeshift tents or damaged buildings. The earthquakes, which claimed hundreds of lives and destroyed homes across several provinces, have overwhelmed local relief efforts. International organizations are calling for urgent assistance to provide warm clothing, blankets, and emergency supplies. Authorities stress the need for immediate action to prevent further loss of life as temperatures continue to drop in the affected regions. Well, China has reaffirmed its support for Nigeria's ongoing fight against terrorism and violent extremism, pledging stronger security cooperation between both nations. During high-level diplomatic talks in Beijing, Chinese officials expressed confidence in Nigeria's ability to tackle its internal security challenges, while offering continued assistance in the intelligence sharing, military training, and counterinsurgency efforts. Beijing also emphasized its firm opposition to what it described as foreign interference in Nigeria's domestic affairs, saying that every nation has a right to choose its own security strategies. Nigerian representatives welcome China's commitment, noting that global partnerships rooted in mutual respect are key to achieving lasting peace and stability. The renewed cooperation underscores China's growing role in Africa's security and development landscape. In another development, fresh tensions are rising in northern Ethiopia as Tigray fighters have reportedly entered the neighboring Afar region, sparking fears of a renewed outbreak of violence. Local sources say clashes have already erupted in several border towns, displacing thousands of civilians and disrupting humanitarian access to vulnerable communities. The move marks a significant escalation in a conflict that has showed signs of easing following a fragile peace deal reached last year. Ethiopia's federal government has condemned the incursion, accusing the Tigray People's Liberation Front of violating the truce and threatening national stability. Tigray officials, however, claim they are responding to provocations and defending their territories. International observers are urging restraint from both sides, warning that a return to full-scale conflict could worsen the humanitarian crisis and destabilize the Horn of Africa region. Meanwhile, Sudan's Prime Minister has called for the Rapid Support Forces (RSF) to be officially designated as a terrorist organization, accusing the paramilitary group of committing widespread atrocities during the country's ongoing conflict. In a televised address, the Prime Minister condemned the RSF's attack on civilians, looting of aid supplies, and destruction of infrastructure, saying their actions amount to war crimes that threaten Sudan's unity and sovereignty. The appeal comes as fighting between the Sudanese army and the RSF continues to devastate several regions, displacing millions and deepening the humanitarian crisis. International observers have echoed concerns over the RSF's conduct. Though global powers remain divided on how to respond, the Prime Minister urged the international community to take decisive action, warning that failure to do so would embolden armed groups and prolong Sudan's suffering. And that wraps up the program. But before we go, the headlines again. Desperation in Gaza as Israel blocks aid despite ceasefire deal. Trump claims California election was rigged. Fact checkers disagree. UK police brace for protests. Clashes as Aston Villa hosts Maccabi Tel Aviv. And Tigray fighters enter Ethiopia's Afar region, stoking fears of new conflict. For more updates and in-depth analysis, follow Politics and Business TV.English on YouTube and Facebook. Connect with us on Instagram at PNBTV_English and TikTok at PNBTV_ENG. Remember to subscribe and stay informed. From me, Fatima Abubakar Oyibo, to have a lovely day. Bye for now.